Heart of Atlanta, Brett Caldwell here. I'm excited. You're tuning in to Unlocking the Commission Code. We've been going through agent interviews and just diving in to all this NAR settlement around cooperating compensation and what it means. Yet, I think some of the biggest struggles we're having is around that consumer mentality, the client questions we're getting, what they're reading in the media, all that to say, I am confident we will navigate this extremely well. So let's dive into some discussions today with the best of the best. Mr. Ryan Graham out of Keller Williams Intown, Ashley Skeen out of Keller Williams Intown, and a K Intown team. We've got Brenda Dollar out of Atlanta Classic. We got Cynthia Baer out of Atlanta Metro. We got Pam Ahern out of Atlanta Midtown. We got Abbie Shepard out of Keller Williams Buckhead. And we got Laura Miller Edwards out of Keller Williams Signature Partners in Marietta, Georgia. Let's go.
How would you respond if somebody said, hey, I saw a news article. Sounds like I don't have to pay 6% to sell my house anymore?
I would say you've never had to pay 6% to sell your house. We've always, the lawsuit that came out is a national lawsuit, started in Missouri. I have no idea what real estate is like in Missouri. Reading through the settlement and some of their directives, we've already been conducting business like that here in Georgia, right? So we've had, Duffy discount brokers. You can always do for sale by owner. We've had Redfin gives money back to the buyers. There's all sorts of discount brokers that already exist in Georgia. So really nothing has changed. We even looked through our Georgia Association of Realtors, our standard boilerplate contracts, and there's really nothing we need to change. And as a profession, I know on our team, I go line by line on that listing agreement, on the buyer brokerage agreement every time, and we go through commission. We do net to sellers, so we're already doing that.
I'll always say, I would say, well, first of all, you never ever had to pay 6% commission because it's always been negotiable. So, there's no standard pricing, it varies by agent. And as far as the industry being okay, we will adapt to the changes as we have in the past. There's always been be more in the future as far as changes. And as a professional, I just continue to demonstrate my value as an experienced professional.
We actually we've had this question. So we say something very similar, that there is no standard commission amount. There is no a commission amount that is set by law. It's always been negotiable. And then we like to ask, well, why do you ask? Are you planning on selling your home? You never know. It is, ask the question, answer the question and go, why are you curious? Are you planning on selling? Do you know someone? And maybe they're just curious, but it's another opportunity to go a little deeper in that conversation with them, which I think some of them we found that are even afraid to ask the question because they're afraid we're not okay. So going to that question, we just say real estate agents are resilient. Buyer's agency has been around since the 90s, and we're very fortunate to be one of the little more than a dozen states in the US that actually have had buyer agencies. So to us, there's not much change other than we're going to get even more clear with you on what you're paying, what it looks like to you, what you're receiving, if you're the buyer or the seller, just very clearly explaining that. And yeah, I think that's probably the main two questions that you had.
So I've also had this conversation multiple times. I feel like that's everybody's favorite. Are you going to be okay? What's going on? Are we not going to have to pay commissions anymore? And my answer has been that, as the media often does, it picks up on a headline and may not have all of the information at that point in time. And then I really don't believe that the amount that is going to be paid is going to change. Not that there is a set amount. It's always been negotiable. It still is negotiable. But I think that the how of the way that it goes about it is going to change. And I think that at the end of the day, we're all going to be fine. I don't see where there's going to have any changes in the value of properties, though. I don't see where any seller is going to say if the buyer's agent is going to, I'm sorry, if the buyer is actually going to be paying that amount directly versus the seller, that I'm going to reduce my property by 3%. I think that this could be a real challenge if it's not a way to be able to work it out so that the sellers are still contributing towards those buyers' fees.
So we also say that the commission has always been negotiable. It's really what's different now is a decoupling of the commission. So we're just having more in-depth conversations regarding what our fees are and what do they want to pay the buyer's broker. And are we okay? Yes, we're okay. Like 89% of the public says that they want to use a buyer's agent, and 89% of the public says they want to use a listing agent. So it becomes more important to us to demonstrate our value because it's not expensive if the value is there. So that's where we need to really focus and sharpen our skills so that that we're demonstrating our value.
I feel like oftentimes we're very just reactive in defensive mode. And I feel as if this is an opportunity to actually play offense rather than defense and understand what it is going on up here. So I think that's step one. Would you agree, Brian?
No, I'm gonna totally disagree. I think that the best approach is to let them know, yeah, our services are now free. We've been making too much money for too long. And I think that now is the time to give back to the community by doing this for free.
Oh, this is
No,
why I love you though, man.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective. Actually, I do think that you need to come from a place of curiosity in this moment. We've all been having conversations, and I think that, you know, and this might be a little controversial within our space, but I do think that the plaintiffs were right a little bit. Largely, they were wrong. Largely, we shouldn't be where we are, but whatever. And so what I mean by that is I think that the general public didn't have a clear understanding of how buyer's agents were compensated, why sellers should actually even be doing this to begin with, you know, and that's on us. So, you know, I think I'm going to be empathetic to that lack of understanding and start there and how to solve this problem. And yeah, to ask the question, to be curious, but then to get real clear with myself on what the value proposition that we offer is, and explain that in a very simple way that's not overly complicated. I think NAR did a great job of giving us a list of 179 items to talk about, but boy, that's a lot. So we need to focus first on distilling that down to what are the few things, what are the top 20, top 30 that really move the needle.
Has anybody asked you guys recently, are you going to be okay? It sounds like the real estate industry is in turmoil.
When the question is asked, and it will be asked if it hasn't already, I see this as a big opportunity. Yes, there's some work that needs to be done. I am a glass half full kind of guy, but in this moment, I'm not going to say this is nothing. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay. It will be okay for those of us who get very clear-eyed and get to work on understanding the pathway forward. And that's what I mean by opportunity. So back to the basics of what we need to do, get very clear-eyed on our value proposition, messaging this to the general public. It's a big opportunity. There will be agents that don't survive this.
I haven't been asked that.
Okay.
But
What would
yeah,
you say if you were asked?
no, we're just fine. You know, again, nothing's really changed for us here in Georgia. I imagine, I mean, I've had clients that have bought and sold in Florida. They have sub-agency, you know, they have different types of agency arrangements, but ours here in Georgia is pretty much in line with what the settlement says.
I read an article recently said that home prices are going to go down as a result of this.
Right.
I'm assuming people are going to start calling and saying, well, can I get a deal now? How would you respond to that one?
Well, it's basic supply and demand, right? And it's funny because I had a seller ask me the other day, because we're getting ready to list her home, and she's watching all the other homes in the neighborhood. And she said, you know, did you see this house on such and such street, you know, went under contract in a couple days? And I said, yeah, I know. We brought the buyer to that place. It had multiple offers. You know, they listed $1,019,000. We're under contract for 1.1. And she goes, oh my goodness, did the buyer have to roll in the commission? I said, no, they went over asking price because of it had 3 or 4 offers on it. You know, so it's still supply and demand that's bidding up the pricing. I mean, and that's what I don't really understand about the perception of that, oh, it's the agent's commission that, made the price skyrocket over the last 4 years. I mean, in COVID, there was a 20% median price increase in Atlanta and then an 18% median price increase. It's not 6%. And our commission's always been in there, so I'm not really following the argument that commission had anything to do with the price increase. It is absolutely supply and demand.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, the true value of any home is going to be the price in which a consumer pays. And I feel as if, similarly to with, I think that going back with, you can use this in the same light as the interest rates. We have to look at our market. And I think studying your market and having a clear understanding of trends and how even the interest rate did or didn't impact home values. How Atlanta, we have still a low inventory. We have a high demand. And even with the higher interest rates, sure, it's slowed a little bit, but that has not stopped an appreciation. I think I use that comparison to where it's something that it's actually relatable for people to understand. Because just like the interest rates went up, it doesn't mean that they went up by, 4%. So our home values are going down by 4%. So, there's always, I feel like you have to be able to tie it in with something that they can relate to when you're explaining how it shouldn't. Anything is possible. And one thing I know for sure is I know nothing. And something that we recently went through is an indicator that the appreciation in home values do not waver based on the external circumstances when it comes, I guess, to percentages, whether that be commission percentages or interest rates.
Yeah, I mean, the truth in all of this is any seller going to pass that savings on to the buyer? I mean, of course not. They're 100%, they're not going to do that. And they're the ones, they're a big part of the decision-making process and how this all works. Pricing of homes is affected by supply and demand. Pricing of all commodities is affected by supply and demand. And until we see a significant change in the supply of inventory in the Atlanta real estate market, in the national real estate market, we will not see an impact or a significant change in demand, right? So if demand goes down, that will affect pricing too. But as of right now, there's a lot of people that still want to buy homes. Interest rates are affordable. The Fed is indicating they are going to go down. Demand isn't going to fall off a cliff. Demand is going to stay pretty consistent. Inventory isn't going to get a whole lot better. It's not going to change. I think the conversation really should be, and I know I'm speaking to agents right now, like I would flip this. My big concern is not about prices falling. My concern is an access to being able to own a home from first-time buyers, maybe underserved buyers, because if agents are getting squeezed out of the industry or agents don't have the skill set and the knowledge and the training to be able to navigate this moment in time, that means there's fewer high-quality agents that can allow access into home ownership for certain cross-sections of the buyer population. That's my concern. It's not going to get cheaper for them to buy a house. It's going to get more expensive or potentially impossible for them to buy a house.
Yeah. I think there's two sides to this coin. We've got a reactive side where the consumer's reading a lot of this stuff in the media, and they might be calling us and asking us questions. But the other side of that coin is, do you have any strategy about being proactive in communicating your value to your sphere of influence on social media? How are you being proactive to change the narrative that the media has been casting?
We're actually using it as an opportunity to reach out and call our clients rather than waiting for our clients to call, because we had a few clients call and they were thinking about selling or they were nervous and wanted to know some things. So we're using it as an opportunity when we reach out to call them, to call your sphere and say, hey, have you noticed the news? Do you have any questions? Ask them, dig a few layers into it about what have you read? What have you seen? What do you think? What do you have questions around? And answer it honestly to them, really give them not the media hype, the actual truth about what these things mean, and let them know that we're still going to be here to serve them and to serve their referrals. We're still going to give them the same or even better level of service as we hone into it even more. We really appreciate their business. Ask for a referral. Also, at the end of the day, it is about educating them as well. And we want to really let them know the truth.
So I really like your approach of going directly to the clients and having personal conversations. I think I have some fears about the way that some people are going out into social media and into the world of sharing information, and maybe they don't have all of the right information, or maybe they're not doing it in a way that I think is really beneficial. And so I have not come out into any kind of a social media type statement of here's what's going on, and don't you want to talk about this, and isn't this going to make things better? But I am having those conversations with immediate clients about what's going on and making sure that everybody has an understanding. And the interesting thing is that at this point, I haven't had pushback about what's going on, other than from people who already don't want to pay any fees anyway. So
Step one, understand your value proposition. And I think it's very important, not unique value proposition. That's an important thing to know too. How do you differentiate yourself in the marketplace? But start with just your plain value proposition. That's step number one. Step number two, come from curiosity, right? What you were just talking about. You need to approach a marketing, a messaging, a communication strategy by asking questions, not telling people what you think you know, right? Get a conversation going. It's multi-channeled. Social media, get some questions out there, some good thought-provoking questions to start some dialogues. Email, newsletters, mass text, all the things that you do. And I'm going to strongly encourage everybody, because we're doing this. Find your ambassador list. Those top 20, 30 people that love you, that send you referrals, that respect you. Pick up the phone, call them, take them to breakfast, lunch, just talk to them, ask them these questions, get to the bottom of it with them, and figure out what's going on in their mind and how you can point them in the right direction to where our industry is going.
I feel as if sometimes agents get stuck. They're like, where do I even start? What value do I even provide? And leaning in on your ambassadors too, and asking them, what is it about me that allowed you to feel comfortable in this process, and getting that. So if you feel stuck, reach out to the people that already do trust you and that you've worked with, or even if you're a new agent that would come to you if they were in a position to buy or sell. And that can also start to help you lean in on your value. I am a huge fan of being yourself. People want to hear you be real, raw, and authentic. And you have the ability to reach so many people and cast a wider net through this social media and the people that you know. And you have got to help the industry stop and quiet the noise, but be authentic. Don't try to mimic whoever you're following and say the same exact thing, or plan too much around what you want to articulate. I think having that sound knowledge of what is happening, what your value is, and being authentically yourself, and honestly, just have a conversation. People don't need to be sold on what's going on. They come to you because you're the expert. So just share what is going on. And the more that we push the messaging out, which is true, the value of a real estate agent, and how this is not going to shake those of us up that believe in our truth, that'll help quiet the noise.
And so I asked Lucreza about this, and she had this awesome idea. I had heard a version of this before, but hearing her say it, which was, you pick up the phone and you invite 2 or 3 of those, the top ambassadors in your life. And they don't, like, if you're a brand new agent, it doesn't have to be a client, right? You don't have any of those yet, maybe. It can be your mom, it can be your best friend, it can be your cousin, somebody that you know will be honest with you, and simply ask them the question, what is it about me that you see in me, that you like, that you respect? What are my superpowers? Like, what are they? Why do you even like me to begin with, right? And then just shut up and listen. Let them tell you what your strengths are. And then ask them, okay, and be honest, what are my weaknesses? What are my blind spots? What do I not know about myself that get me in trouble? And shut up and listen. And when Mika on my team did that, she was blown away at not only like, okay, wow, someone was real with me and told me, like, I talk too much or whatever. And I'm just making stuff up now, right? But like the truth that she got, but what was way more empowering was, I didn't realize how much they like me. I didn't realize how my personality went so far. I didn't understand how hard of a worker was. Like, I know how hard I work, but I never. So that's a very powerful moment when you allow those closest to you to be your mirror for a moment and then reflect yourself on what you just heard.
I love it. Let me take you guys to the listing table for a minute. So obviously, I think the conversations are going to look a little bit different at the listing presentation, right? I think the sellers are going to feel like they are wanting to engage in different tight conversations. I think I could see them saying, hey, I don't want to pay a buyer's agent commission anymore. I read in this article, what's your advice? Or maybe I'll just offer less than buyer's agent commission. How do we feel about that? Or are you taking a stance where you're willing to protect that buyer agent commission from the position of a listing agent? What do you think is going to happen? How do you foresee those conversations looking?
For us, it is, you're not obligated to pay a buyer's agent commission. You've never been obligated. But let's think about sales and the market. It's supply and demand. We cannot control the supply, but we can have an influence on demand for your home. And you can help influence that by having your home professionally staged, having your inspection done ahead of time. Having the repairs done ahead of time, and exposing your home to more people, more buyers out there by offering buyers compensation. First-time home buyers and VA buyers would be excluded. Oftentimes VA buyers are excluded from being able to make an offer on your home. You don't want to exclude them by not offering cooperative compensation. And then with first-time home buyers, oftentimes they are in a very tight pinch on their money to bring to closing. Now, you can put in there that you want to, that they can ask for it, but they often don't even know that they can ask for it. So let me ask you, Mr. Seller, would you like to have an influence on the demand and expose your home to the most people possible to get you the highest price in the least amount of time? Let me also say that when you have a buyer represented coming to your agent representing your buyer coming to your listing, you're getting the extra protection that agent brings by having them, they're protecting your items when they're coming into your home because they've been background checked, fingerprinted. They have vendors that can get inspections done quickly. They have all the resources that they can represent that buyer to move it faster so that we can have a successful closing. So the success fee that we offer to the buyers for their compensation will increase our demand. Totally your choice. Which do you prefer?
Well, commissions are negotiable. I do advise, competing with the market, of the moment. So let's just analyze the other comparable properties. Are they paying a compensation, to buyer's agent, or are they not? Right? And if they are, and you're not, who do you think, which buyers are going to come to your home before they go to the other one?
I was just going to say that, at the end of the day, that you're likely going to be paying for the buyer's concessions towards the buyer's agent, whether or not you list it as immediate concessions or if they ask for it in the offer. And so you lose that marketing power of putting it out to begin with if you wait for them to ask you, especially if you have other competition that's doing that right off the bat. So then you're putting yourself into a negative position when at the end of the day, you're likely going to end up in a similar net place.
Absolutely. I absolutely see the value of a buyer's agent. I appreciate what they bring to the table, how they are a critical and key role in ensuring that we get through each major milestone and get to the closing table. I will, as a listing agent, always and forever honor and stand for a buyer agent. Now I have a client that's maybe pushing back. It's a new client reading articles, and they always, they say, hey, what if we do this? Here's how I'm going to respond. That's an option, because guess what it is? That is always an option. Let's talk through what that looks like and pros and cons. I'm pulling up data, and I am actually now preparing ahead of time for my listing presentation, which we always do anyways, I am already preemptively pulling up and looking, again, data and having that factual information. It's indisputable facts. We're just here to share facts. Seeing how many properties in this neighborhood had agent compensation that was less than 3%. How long were they on the market? How much did it actually sell for? Were there any price reductions? I'm calling that listing agent, asking for feedback around that too. And I think that that information and showing them that it is absolutely an option. What are we valuing? Why is that? Again, going back to curiosity, why is that important to you? Tell me. They're all going to say, because we want to keep as much money as possible in our pockets, right? We all know that. Great. So I'm walking them down this path and I'm creating and painting this picture as to what that would look like if they did offer less. And is that really giving them more money at the end? And then I'm not actually giving them an answer. I'm letting them self-discover and I'm painting the picture with factual information. And I think that if it's something where, again, and I'll be honest with them, it is the bane of my existence, the thought of actually working with a buyer that is not represented. I'm a fiduciary to you. We do not do dual agency. I cannot help navigate them through this process and help manage their emotions because I am your fiduciary. So some way, somehow, this is going to cost you a lot more money because I can't support them in the capacity that I'm supporting you. Which would you prefer?
Well, I went on a listing presentation yesterday, and when we got to the, we did our presentation, and when we got to the part about reviewing the listing engagement agreement, I started off that section and said, have you heard about the news about the conversation around commission? And she said, yes. And I just proceeded forward and said, well, let's talk about that. We charge 3% for our fee. The question comes, what do you want to pay the buyer's broker? I can tell you what my suggestion is. And I can tell you that 3% is my suggestion because you're going to make your home more available to more buyers if you're willing to compensate for their realtor. And she said, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love that answer. I don't know that there's anything I can add that brings any additional value to it. I will say that from a strategy perspective, we're gonna play around with this. We're gonna be prepared to have different types of conversations on all the listing. And I'm also gonna say I don't know where sellers are gonna fall in this camp. Here, this is what I know is there's all different types of people, and so we're gonna have to be prepared for all different types of conversations and strategies. So, whether it's a menu of services and we're strongly looking at what that looks like. I mean, and I'm not talking about 1%, 2%, 3%. We're talking more like 2%, 3%, 4%, and more. 4.5% even for an unrepresented buyer. I think you need to be very mindful of that.
Come on now, we're going up to 8, honey.
All right. So see, this is the
it's
thing.
Like you get what it's like, yeah, the menu of options.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, we want a buyer's agent to be part of a seller wants a buyer's agent to be in that transaction. It's a fact of the matter that your most highly qualified buyer's agents are working with your most highly qualified buyers. And wouldn't you want the most highly qualified buyer coming to purchase your property because they give you the greatest chance of a certain closing? They're most knowledgeable about the market and what your home is really worth. And they give you that clear pathway forward to get you to where you're trying to go. Also, the more that you offer, like anything, the more traffic you're going to drive to the property, which means more showings, more potential interest, maybe even multiple offers. That all affects the demand, which affects your price in a positive sort of way. So yeah, okay, let's pay them nothing. Let's all now offer any buyer agent commission, and let's just see if we can't find a buyer direct. To Ashley's point, like there is so much risk associated with that my great concern is, well, it just doesn't close to begin with. Even worse, what type of liability do we create? What type of legal issue comes up? And I'm not trying to like motivate through fear. I'm just trying to be real. Like there's a lot of problems that can come through that. But let's dig in on, okay, I'm a seller and I'm not paying a buyer's commission, period, full stop. Well, I need to ask you that question. I need to ask you a question, seller. Are you saying under no circumstance would you ever be willing to allow a commission to come out of the sale of the property? Yeah, I'm a hard no on that. Okay. We're going to have an uphill battle on that. Like, even if someone were to offer more money, right? They pay you more than what you're asking to make sure it's covered. You still wouldn't allow that to happen, right? And so I think you need to back people into a corner in some situations to help them understand the truth in the matter is the buyer is the one that's paying for everything. Like they're the one with the bank account full of cash or with the loan, the 6-figure loan, right? I mean, they're the one who brings the money to make all this happen. Yes, seller, you are the one who owns the asset. You are the one who makes the decisions about what will come out of the deal because it's your net number. But aren't we losing sight of what really matters, which is your net number? So what I'm saying here is if we can put together a deal that nets you the number that you're trying to net, what does it matter what fee comes out of it? Whenever they have a $5,000 issue with an HVAC, your busted ass HVAC system that needs to be replaced, and you don't want to deal with that, instead we give them $5,000 at closing so that they go away and deal with that after closing. Why don't you just think about their agent as a busted ass HVAC unit, right? Like we need to think about things a little bit different, right? It's just right. That's it.
The perspective.
Well, it's the same thing of, I am not a discount broker. My job, which I take very seriously, is to net my sellers the most amount of money. And if you've ever been in a listing presentation with me where I break down absorption rates, we're looking at supply and demand and deciding which pricing category to go into. And so I'm explaining, very clearly how a demand can give you the most amount of money. We do that, through staging and presentation of the home and then positioning it on the market. Well, additionally, offering a buyer's agent commission is going to maximize the amount of buyers that come through your home. So why would I want to, cut that number down, by whatever, 70%? I mean, I don't know what buyer's agents are going to work for free. And so, explaining that, and if they still don't get it, I'm saying, I'm going to run your net to seller with that 6% included, because I guarantee you what we're going to see now are buyer's agents, in their offers saying buyers requesting, because it's a hardship, that the listing or that the seller pays the commission, just like they're asking for closing costs. They're going to ask for that commission paid. So I'd rather you build that into your net now, assuming that that's going to be the case, then try to, price it somewhere and then try to get that buyer to pay. If you don't have multiple offers and you come back to that buyer, well, I want you to pay, 3% more. That just doesn't look well. Now, again, every house is case by case. We're looking at pricing. I'm not saying overcharge. I'm saying where the market is now already has a 6% built in. It's the smartest thing to run that in your net to seller. And if we can, which I believe we're going to be able to, just price it where it belongs with that 6% included.
So at that listing table, there's this concept of bundled versus unbundled commission conversations, meaning bundled would be, hey, I'm going to charge you 6% in the listing agreement. I'm going to show you that I'm offering a percentage commission to a buyer's agent. And unbundled would mean we're going to have a conversation around what you're going to pay the listing broker. And then we're going to have a second conversation around what we're offering marketing wise to a buyer representation. Do you still see yourself having a bundled conversation or an unbundled conversation?
Well, I've already started unbundling it. I mean, our fee is 3%, which in the past, I'll be quite honest with you, if they didn't want to pay, we took it off our side because we felt like we weren't the one negotiating. I mean, why would we penalize the buyer agent when we're the one making the concession? So we would take from ourselves first. And it was often due because they're maybe purchasing a home, selling and buying, or maybe they're, repeat clients multiple times over. But now we're actually increasing what we're making on our side because we're just saying our fee is 3%. Now the question is, what do you want to pay the buyer's broker? So to me, there is a decoupling conversation as opposed to our fee is 6%. We pay this much to us and this much to the, goes this much you pay goes to the buyer's broker.
I agree 100%. That's actually the exact same conversation I was going to have, that I'm now very clear about what my rate is, and then working out the other side and making the suggestion about the fact that 3% is the right marketing fee for it. But I do think that I'll end up making higher because if I do take a discount, it would always be on my side. I would never take it on the buyer side. So I think it can be a benefit for listing agents at the end of the day.
I agree with that as well. Normally on my menu of services, you know, it would be 6, 7, and 8. So I'm gonna debundle, or what you just said, bundle it and put 3. You know, this is what you get for 3%. That's what you get for 3.5%. This is what you get for 4. And that would be my professional fee. In addition to that, you have an opportunity on this line of what you would compensate a buyer's agent that bring us a buyer.
Yeah, I'm going to jump right on top of this. I have felt that the listing agreement has been written incorrectly for several years now. I took Seth Wiseman's class on this current topic just a week or so ago. It was like 2 days before the settlement announcement came out. I spoke to him directly. I said, I think that the guard needs to be changed. It needs to be an unbundled written explanation inside of the agreement. And I think that we need to have the conversation differently. And so the way that we're going to have this conversation going forward is simply, I would like for you to hire me as your agent. These are my values. What I charge is 3%, 4%. I have a $5.95 transaction fee, and then we cover everything else. Capital improvements are on you. That is my fee structure. That's what I charge. Now we need to have a conversation about buyer's representation and how a buyer agent is going to get compensated in this deal. My recommendation is that you market and offer a buyer's agent compensation of 3%. That is what's going to drive the best traffic. I think it's what makes the most sense. It's going to give you the best results. It's a separate piece. That's my recommendation.
Perfect. So you're going to have an unbundled conversation. Ashley, you?
Same. The conversation is, again, going through what sets us apart from the average agent, what our value prop is, da, 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 da. We earn 4%, of which we are going to do X, Y, and Z as part of our partnership, right? We also have the contract compliance fee. We go through that. I say, but there's another piece to this, and it's a marketing piece and an advertising piece. And that's going to be what you're willing to offer. What do you think? They're like, well, they get them thinking and talking. Well, marketing, well, you said you're taking care of the pictures, you're taking care of the video, you're taking care of the brochure, you're taking care of this, and your name, and the brand, and this, that, your expert negotiation skills. Okay, what are we missing here? There's a huge piece of this marketing that we need to talk about what that value and worth is to you. So basically, I want them to get their thoughts going around why is that buyer agent such a huge leverage piece?
I'm going to say what we've always said, which is our commission is 6%. We pay 3% to the buyer's agent. If they have questions around, and you know, I had a listing appointment on 2 days ago, and it didn't come up. You know, if they have questions and want to break that down, again, I would, say offer that 3%, because chances are that buyer doesn't have the ability to pay both their closing costs and their agent 3% and put a down payment. So go ahead and put it in there, because, until I see the market shifting differently, they're going to request this from you, because nobody's working for free.
This conversation feels like it's a new conversation. Yet I actually feel like this is a conversation we've been having for a while now, anticipating changes coming to our industry. Is this new conversation around your value proposition? Is this new conversation you're having with agents on your team, or in conversations and team meetings, or have you already been thinking about and working on changing the value conversations you have inside your business?
Well, I mean, we have, for the reasons you just mentioned. I think that, and this going back to my statement about where I think the plaintiffs actually had it right a little bit. I've been in this business for 21 years. Day one, I charge you 6% to list your home. In the event that a buyer's agent is present, we're going to share that commission, 3% to them, 3% to me. And there's this like quiet moment we as realtors say like, and I'm going to keep it all if there's no agent. You know how many times that's happened in my career? That many. And there's a lot of reasons why the numbers, and I know that isn't true for everybody, right? I know that some people have gotten the golden double side on the thing, but it's this whole quiet thing that we all were like saying it wrong and talking about it wrong for all of these years for something that almost never happens. And back to the point you made earlier, Ashley, you talk to any listing agent that has done more than a dozen deals, and certainly any listing agent that's been in business over the past 3 or 4 years, 100% of the time they want a buyer's agent on the other side of the table. That we're the ones that understand that and get that. So yeah, the conversation has always needed to be different, and now it has to be different. And this is what we charge, and this is the reason that you should be marketing this commission to compensate a buyer's agent.
At the listing or at the buyer consultation, we do not show a property period without a signed brokerage agreement. We have never. And we understand the importance and the value of articulating our value out of the gate, getting that buy-in from that partnership. And they believe it, they see it, they understand it, and now we're demonstrating it in the real world application. And that is something that it may feel daunting for some agents that have not made that a regular practice. And what I can stress to you is when you do, you will level up as an agent, as an industry leader, and you will be better serving your clients.
Perfect.
Yeah. So one of the things that I want to say to sellers when we're having these conversations is, look, here's one of the biggest ways our industry will change. And it's the way in which buyers agents are talking to buyers. And it's what buyer agents are going to require of their buyers in order to work with them. And what I mean by that is, yet A, they will be clearly articulating their value proposition. B, they'll be clearly articulating their fee structure. And C, it'll be written, it'll be in writing, it'll be in a contract. And so what that means is the way our agreements are written is that buyer is working with me, right? And they know that they're committed to a 3% commission. And if the seller isn't willing to offer that at all or in part, they're going to make sure that the difference is made up. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting that in the contract. So if anybody on our team brings an offer to your listing and it's not disclosed or they don't know, they're just going to put it in the contract. They're going to start negotiating with you right out of the gate. So this is what the point I'm trying to make, seller, is that if you are unwilling to entertain any offer that includes compensation for a buyer's commission, there will be a significant number of buyers that flat out will not place an offer on your property. Mark Jones was in our market center yesterday talking to all of us, and he says, bottom line, the way that this works in our business, and it has since 1992, by the way, is that the only way as an agent that I can give you my advice, my professional expertise, my guidance, is you have to hire me and you have to sign this agreement. And I know me, I can't keep my mouth shut. So I can't work with you unless I get you to sign this agreement. So whether you go serious, whether you go playful, back to being authentic, figure out what matters to you and then move forward that way.
In the future, do you have some anticipation of having listings that you might offer less than what you might say would be a normal commission rate? And in the case of you having those listings, how are you going to manage the expectation of said buyer's agents talking to you about those listing commissions?
There's always a creative way and opportunity for agents to get paid. It is all about how you're going to negotiate this into the deal. And I am promising anyone and everyone that's out there that if ever there's a situation where it's either we can't bring a listing to market, but they're only going to offer the buyer agent 2%, my conversation with that buyer agent, and I'm going to be transparent with the seller. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, those buyer agents work their tail feathers off. I'm going to share with you the conversation that I'm going to have with them. In the event that there's a 1% gap that needs to be covered, what we're going to do is talk about creative ways in which you're still winning because I have your best interests at the forefront of my mind at all times. And how can we also make sure that they are not going to not bring a buyer to the table and you miss out on that opportunity? So what we're going to be suggesting is that they increase the purchase price to cover any gap that might be there. At the end of the day, it's all about the net. I don't care if someone offers you $1 million and they offer 500, whatever in closing costs, whatever that is, we're looking at a net. Okay. But to that buyer and that buyer agent, that extra out of pocket may be the why that they need to say yes to your property. Can you get on board with that? And I'm having that same conversation with the buyer's agent and helping them work through what creative options look like.
So there's probably going to be a moment where listing agents are getting a lot of phone calls or text messages. What's the commission? What's the commission? What's the commission? And so this is my public service announcement. The answer to that question has to always be the same. If you answer that question one way with one person and a different way with another person, that is a extremely slippery slope for fair housing violations, discrimination, all of that kind of stuff. Okay. So like, this is, be a little afraid, be a little concerned, be very, very mindful of the fact that your process needs to be crystal clear and 100% consistent all the time. So this was brought to my attention. There's a lot of concern. I think it's, correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, maybe, in Birmingham or somewhere in Alabama, they already dropped buyer's agent commission in their local multiple listing service. This was like 6 months ago. So every single buyer's agent is calling listing agents, right? And there's already concern, there's already accusations. I haven't heard of anything legal, but accusations of, well, if you sound a certain way, if you sound more experienced, less experienced, if you have a bigger reputation in the market, no reputation, if your accent, or like, there's some accusations around certain agents are getting one number presented to them and other agents are getting a different number presented to them. That cannot happen.
I feel as if as a listing agent, a lot of my job is to help even the buyer agent understand or come from curiosity around like what that could look like so that they are able to help move that needle with their own client.
Yeah, let's not forget what co-op agent means, right? It means we're in a cooperative environment. We absolutely represent our client, right? We advise our client. We want to create wins for them, but that doesn't mean at all cost. When we are cooperating with each other, we try to find solutions in a collaborative sort of way. And as it relates to this commission conversation, we can help figure out, we can help skin that cat, right? We can help crack that nut in a way that nets our seller what they're looking to net, right? Accomplishes their goals, doesn't compromise the fiduciary position, right? And yet it still is in a cooperative atmosphere where we're working together to create the win for both clients. Because at the end of the day, that's what both sides want, is to sell and buy the home, make the transaction happen, and get on with our lives.
Do you believe you're going to go through a period of innovation around your business practices?
Shame on us if we don't.
Yeah.
So spell that out. How do you envision that looking?
I look at this as another opportunity for feedback. Right? We use the promise, right? Where at the end of the transaction, if we don't have the name and number of someone in your world that could also benefit from a stellar experience such as yours, I'm going to be asking for feedback. If we also do not earn a 5-star review by the time we get to the closing table, that means that some way along the line, I have failed you. I'm going to be asking for feedback. So what we do is we sit down and we say, okay, what could we be doing differently, better, that benefits the clients that we serve in the industry that we represent? And we have people take what's called thinking time to think through that. And what is going to be their participation? What is their role moving forward? What does that look like? How are they going to show up differently? And I think that this is a moment for all of us in the industry to take some thinking time and use this as an opportunity to level up.
Back to when you are working with a buyer, you have to have a buyer brokerage agreement signed from day one. We've already talked about that. And when that happens, because that happens, you now have the right and the ability to put special stipulation from the GAR contracts, either 619 or 620, depending on if it's FHA, VA, or if it's conventional otherwise. Put the appropriate stipulation in the purchase and sale agreement from the time of offer that says how you're being compensated as a buyer's agent. Start that negotiation day one. And now, I mean, I'm kind of at the place where I would make the argument as a buyer's agent, first of all, you should have never worried about the commission, right? But don't worry about it. Like, don't spend your time. Where is it in the MLS? It's not in the MLS anymore. Now I got to go to the agent's website. I got to call the agent. I got to text the agent. I got to send smoke. Don't worry about it. Just put it in the contract. Use the stipulation that GAR wrote for us a long time ago and put it in there from the jump and keep calm and carry on. I think that's kind of the most innovative thing right now. And again, it's not new, but it's going to be a new business practice.
I don't just say it because it sounds great. Realtors really are resilient. I mean, we're out here, we know that we're making a difference in people's lives. We're impacting them, not just monetarily for wealth building purposes, but for their life, for their, that feeling of home with your family. And we're definitely going to innovate. I'm looking at multiple ways, which they're still in my thinking brain right now. So I don't want to put it out until I've worked through some more things. When ready, I'll bring to you guys that might help us all to be more efficient and transparent.
So I don't really envision a huge change. I do think there will be some, because obviously the consumer is, there's a lot of media around it right now. Very excited. I'm sure there's a lot of tech companies and other companies are going, this is my time to get in the business. So do I think there's going to be more discount brokerages and that sort of thing? Yes. But we've seen that in the past, so it typically, ebbs and flows. It's like, people were, for sale by owner was all the rage until it wasn't, it wasn't working. So, I don't think that I do think there'll be some companies that come into the marketplace, but I don't think, like I said, I know the numbers on the back end and the business model. I don't think they're going to survive.
I see it as an opportunity to get into deeper relationships with your clients. I call it old fashioned. We've gotten away from all of I was just having this conversation today, all the conveniences and the fast things that keep us from having to be face to face with a client. I still remember the day when I had to go meet them in person with 7 copies and blue ink pen, and we had to, signing the documents. The opportunities to be face to face, to interact with someone and actually read body language, see facial expressions more. We've lost some of that. And I think there's opportunities to hone our listening skills.
I think that the opportunity for those of us who have real experience and who are really living and breathing this profession every day versus the people who are part-time or are basing their entire value on getting a lead off Zillow are going to really shine and have more opportunity. I also think that there's going to be people who leave the industry, which opens up a lot more opportunity for all of us.
Let's talk just some other things. Like, who do you think's going to lose in this conversation? Meaning, what seller, what buyer potentially could lose as a result of this?
I mean, I think I said it a little bit earlier. I'm concerned about either unrepresented or underrepresented first-time buyers or marginalized buyers. That's where I'm concerned. I think so now more than ever, if you're at the top of your game as a buyer's agent, you need to be seeking out people who may not know about you, that don't understand the value, right? That's a place, that's an opportunity to help, because I do think that, whether it's a conversation about the American dream for certain people, it becomes more and more out of reach, or they get themselves in a situation where they deal with a financial burden that cripples them as opposed to sets them up for long-term success. So that's where my worry is.
I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of fallout, of a lot less realtors, 4 or 5 years from now. And that's the thing, I listened in the news and they're like, oh, well, realtors make so much money. What is the median income of a realtor? Like $30,000 or $40,000?
It's a little higher than that, but yeah.
I mean, it's not it's not like, people look at, what the top 10% make and go, oh, well, they're making a good living, but most people are not. So if people that are, doing a couple transactions a year, selling their, best friend's house or what, and they aren't getting paid or doing it for a discount, like I said, I know the financials, that's going to fall out. So
I think it's going to have a huge negative impact on first-time home buyers and on the people who need the help the most, who feel like they may not be able to afford it, may not know that there are ways that they may be able to work around it. And especially because that's the area where the sellers are less likely to pay a buyer's agent fee. We're already seeing that currently. on the lower end price points. And think that it can cause a lot of potential issues.
If you're giving a message to listing agents, you're giving advice to listing agents in the marketplace. What's your message?
Support our agents in our industry. Set everyone up for success.
Okay.
We have to band together.
Yeah, be an advisor to your client as you always have been. Decouple the commission conversation. It is a two-part conversation, and help the sellers understand the value that our industry brings to the marketplace.
And I echo Ryan. I'm not going to repeat all of that. It's okay to not be sure. It's okay that things are slightly uncertain, and it's okay to feel a little leery. That's okay. It's valid and it's understandable. Feel that. Now figure out, what are you going to do to take your unfair share? As much as I want rainbows and unicorns, and I want everyone in life to freaking win, I want everyone in life to win, there is going to be a lot of agents that are not able to power through this. And my question to you is, how are you going to show up differently, better, a greater agent for your clients, and able to serve so many more other people and lean in on what Ryan just said? That's some powerful stuff to have an impact on even more people.
I think it's really important that listing agents get very good at explaining the value of having buyer's agents and why they should be compensated. Because I think that there's a lot of people who may not be able to articulate that very well. And in that situation, we're going to run into a lot of problems in being able to get to the closing table.
So what I'm hearing you say, Cynthia, is it's not just a skill set around articulating your value as the listing agent, but we should take it also another layer to make sure we're skilled at explaining the value of a buyer's agent inside of that transaction.
Absolutely.
It's okay to be upset right now. It's okay to be emotional. Think about when you're in a real estate transaction, you have something under contract, and the other agent says something, or the seller or the buyer make a decision that just infuriates you. What do? You go back to your team, you go back to your office, you go back and you vent. You express those emotions, you get it out, it's cathartic. It's okay. And then you buckle up and you figure out a pathway forward. So that's, I mean, I'm a big energy person. I'm a big philosophy person. Like, you need to give yourself the grace to be in this moment. It is what it is, and that's okay.
Why are we also not using this opportunity to reach out to our buddies that are at different brokerages that didn't have Gary Keller stroke a check to support us, and that doesn't have the support around them like we have right now? Because the fact that you're able to watch this is pretty amazing, and they need us now more than ever. Let us be the example of the industry, the leaders of the industry at Keller Williams, and reach out to your buddies and see if they need the support, because I feel like they deserve it. And bring them in. They deserve to be a part of a company that cares about their people, that is willing to protect them and be proactive rather than reactive.
I highly doubt other brokerages are even having conversations like we are about all of this. And that's one of the reasons I love Keller Williams, because we do this,
Same.
right?
Yeah.
We dig deep and we have those upfront and hard conversations. We're ahead of the game. And so this is, I mean, I'm just being honest. This is what keeps me so attracted to this company, because we just hit it straight on. We go through it. We're like a bull. We go through the storm. We don't go around it. We don't hang out until it passes. We take it head on and we make it happen. So we set the bar.
One of the statements I've been making is we're moving away from an assumption world, meaning we've assumed that there was a buyer agent commission on most transactions because it was posted in the MLS. We have assumed our consumers understood everything we did, but we didn't necessarily communicate everything we did. And what we're doing is we're resetting at a moment in time around actually communicating and initiating dialogue and conversations around why our value proposition is worth what we charge. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you got some incredible information, an amazing perspective, and the skill set to go win. Have a good one.